It's been 26 years since one of our favorite directors, Sam Raimi, made a movie with an R rating. And with his new film, Send Help, hitting theaters soon, we thought there was no better time to go all the way back. Back to the woods, back to the blood, back to the movie where it all began. Today, we're breaking down the 1981 horror classic that rewrote the rules, traumatized audiences, launched multiple legendary careers, and was literally banned in multiple countries. The Evil Dead. Casper, have you ever been to a cabin in the woods? Exactly. You'd be dead in 5 minutes. This is the movie that proved you didn't need permission, money, or even basic safety standards to change cinema forever. Just a camera, a few friends, and an absolutely unhinged level of commitment. When The Evil Dead was released, it didn't just shock audiences, it scared the people whose job it was to decide whether you were even allowed to see it. In the US, the film was slapped with an X rating, a label typically reserved for pornography or movies considered genuinely disturbing. Later, it would be reclassified as NC-17 for substantial graphic horror, violence, and gore, though many home video releases eventually ditched a rating entirely. In the UK, things got even crazier. The film was trimmed by 49 seconds just to receive an X certificate for theaters. That censored version then hit home video, which at the time didn't even require classification. That loophole did not last long. Thanks to an anti-media moral panic, The Evil Dead was labeled video nasty, banned, pulled from shelves, treated like contraband. Later releases were cut again and again before finally in 2000, nearly 20 years later, the uncut version was legally released in the UK. And even today, the film remains banned in certain countries. All of this for a low-budget indie horror film made by a bunch of kids from Michigan. The Evil Dead is deceptively simple. 5 friends take a trip to a remote cabin in the woods. They find a cellar, they find a tape recorder, they find a book bound in flesh, the Necronomicon, or Book of the Dead, and everything goes to hell. Casper, if you ever heard a creepy recording in the basement, what would you do? And yet, The Evil Dead takes this most familiar horror setup and completely throws out the rulebook. By the late 1970s, horror tropes were well established. You had your moral judgments, your final girl, your punishments for sex, drugs, or bad behavior. Sam Raimi doesn't care. Everyone is fair game. Morality doesn't matter. And possession flips the traditional power dynamic. The women aren't Dasmals in distress. They become the source of terror. Even nudity is inverted. There's nothing erotic here. Everything is invasive, uncomfortable, violating. And at the center of it all is Ash Williams. Ash isn't a hero. He's not brave. He's not prepared. He's not chosen. He's just alive. Played by the endlessly likable Bruce Campbell, Ash starts the movie as a relaxed, slightly goofy everyman. Not the alpha of the group, not the smartest, not the strongest, which is exactly why he works. Ash becomes our avatar. He's just as confused, terrified, and overwhelmed as we are. His survival isn't destiny, it's necessity. And as the movie goes on, he's less a slayer of evil and more a guy being actively bullied by the universe. Which honestly brings us to how this movie was made. To understand The Evil Dead, you have to understand Sam Raimi. Growing up in Michigan, Raimi and his friends, including Bruce Campbell and producer Rod Tappert, spent their childhood making Super 8 films inspired by the Three Stooges. Raimi learned early that movies were physical experiences. Comedy hurt. Horror should too. After a no-budget feature called It's Murder and a short proof-of-concept film called Within the Woods, Raimi decided to make a full-length horror movie designed specifically to kill at drive-ins. To fund it, he didn't go to Hollywood. He did it the old-fashioned way. Went to dentists, lawyers, and family friends. Anyone willing to gamble on a kid with a camera. Eventually, they scrapped together $375,000, and then they went to Tennessee. The cabin they found had no electricity, no plumbing, no insulation. Animal waste covered the floors. The cast and crew slept on the ground. It was freezing. People got sick. People got hurt. Tempers flared. Equipment broke. Cameras froze. Bruce Campbell sprained his ankle, and Raimi poked it with a stick because he believed real pain translated to screen. Actors wore thick contact lenses that deprived their eyes of oxygen. Betsy Baker couldn't even see during fight scenes. Ellen Sandweiss was repeatedly cut by tree branches while running through the woods. At one point, a cameraman slipped, fell, and smashed the camera into Campbell's face, knocking out teeth. And Raimi just kept shooting. This wasn't filmmaking, this was survival. What makes The Evil Dead endure isn't just the gore, it's the camera. Raimi didn't have a Steadicam, so he built one. He strapped the camera to a 2x4, grabbed one end, gave the other to Bruce Campbell, and ran through the woods at full speed. That demonic POV, that wild, unhinged energy became iconic. The camera isn't observing the horror, it is the horror. And here's one of my favorite facts about the movie. One of the assistant editors on The Evil Dead was Joel Cohen. Yeah, that Joel Coen. Working under editor Edna Paul, Coen helped cut the film, including the legendary shed sequence. Raimi and the Coen brothers became close, later collaborating on Crime Wave. And when the Coens made their debut feature, Blood Simple, they literally consulted Raimi on how to recreate the chaotic camera movement. The Evil Dead didn't just influence horror, it influenced cinema. Every effect in this movie is practical. Fake blood made of Karo syrup, 2% milk for demon pus, creamed corn for melting bodies, chicken meat stabbed for sound effects. It's grotesque, it's absurd, and somehow it works. And that's because Sam Raimi never forgets his roots. There's always comedy lurking under the terror. The movie knows how ridiculous it is and leans into it just enough to keep the audience off balance. You're laughing, then you're screaming, then you're laughing again. That tonal tightrope walk is Raimi's signature, one he'd refine in Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness, and even Spider-Man decades later. After its premiere in Detroit, The Evil Dead struggled to find distribution. Then Stephen King saw it and called it the most ferociously original horror film of the year. That quote changed everything. The movie played Cannes, it toured, it hit home video where it truly exploded. That's how cult classics are born. For me, I didn't start with The Evil Dead. I started with Army of Darkness on VHS, thinking that was the beginning and end of Ash Williams. Then one summer, wandering into Blockbuster, I found The Evil Dead. My brain broke because suddenly there was a whole world I didn't know existed, and that's what this film represents. The idea that you and your friends could make something unforgettable. That filmmaking wasn't just for Hollywood. That passion, stubbornness, and creativity mattered more than polish. The Evil Dead is horror's Rocky, an underdog story soaked in blood. Born in blood and controversy, The Evil Dead remains one of the most influential horror films ever made. It launched careers, it rewrote visual language, and it proved that sometimes the scariest thing isn't demons. It's what happens when no one tells you no. Just like when I made my horror comedy short film Neil that premiered at South by Southwest. If you enjoyed this breakdown, possess that subscribe button and let me know what movie we should tackle next. And remember, don't read from strange books you find in basements.